Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the Chief Creative Officer and Chief Marketing Officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume.
The Sparkfile podcast may contain profanity and other adult content.
Please use your discretion.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Welcome to the Spark File, where we believe that everyone is creative, but smart creative people don't do it alone, Hannies.
I'm Laura Camion.
And I'm Susan Blackwell. If you are an OG listener, welcome back, Sparkler. If you're joining us for the first time, know that you are so welcome here.
Whether your creativity has been on pause during this time or you've clung to it like a lifeline, either way, welcome.
If you're new around these parts, you may be asking yourself, what exactly is a Spark File? Where do I get a Spark File? What do I file in it? These are such good questions, and we have answers for you.
A Spark File is a place where you consistently collect all your inspirations and fascinations.
Listen to the sounds of our voices. We are makers who make all kinds of things.
If you're anything like us and you're making stuff all the time or want to be making stuff all the time, you know that the wellspring of inspiration can run a little dry, especially now.
But don't despair. We are here for you, and we are on the lookout for fresh ideas, images, and inspiration that spark our creativity and pique our curiosity, things that inspire us to get up off of our asses and make things like this podcast.
Or a witty, romantic, historical examination of the 19th century England.
Or what? Champion, I forgot to prepare mine. Or didn't you do this last time?
But I forgot.
Or something that perfectly somethings and somethings.
Oh, that sounds so something. Every episode, we're going to reach into the Spark File and exchange some sparks. And from time to time, we're going to talk to some folks who spark us too.
And if you're not careful, you might just have some shing-ling-a-ling-ling-ling-a-ling holiday fun. So without further ado, let's open up
the Spark File. Oh my gosh, Susan, that's never happened
really
before.
Good start. I was so proud of myself. I got my spark already.
So prepared.
I was like, I'm done early. And I didn't even think to update my intros.
Yep.
But who cares?
You know what? No one noticed. Not one person noticed.
We're not selling perfection here at the Spark File. We're selling good times and deep feelings.
That's right. That's
Tams,
right.
how are you doing?
I'm doing
We're in the midst
good.
of the holiday season.
I'm in the midst of the holiday season. I'm gonna keep this light, and but I'm not trying to make light of this. I will just say that for how we talked a long time ago, like we're all in the same storm. We're not in the same boat. We're in the same storm,
right?
So we've all had hardships through this, but in case anyone is out there who's like been working the entire time, and I know I'm grateful to have been working since March 16th, but this is kind of the first break-ish, like this little holiday break. And I don't know about anyone else, but I'm finding that I'm just, Suze, I'm crying like every 2 hours. And I don't know if it's like I just sort of tapped into some wellspring of sadness that I just didn't have time. You know, like I couldn't stop to have it until now. So I just want to say to any listeners, if that's you, if you've been working your ass off since March and you find yourself now with a moment of time and you've filled it with sadness, I just want to say you're not alone.
Welcome to the club.
Or maybe I need to know that I'm not alone. I'm not sure which, but yeah.
You know what that reminds me of? I remember reading an interview with Parker Posey years ago where she talked about how she was working on it with her therapist about why was it when she did a movie, she felt like she was sort of surrounded, like it felt very familial. And then when the movie was over, she was overtaken by this deep sadness. And it just reminds me of all the times, Cams, maybe you can relate to this, like you have, that I have been, maybe you have been as well, doing shows and you're like, you're just so like just morning, noon and night, working so hard. You have something that you have your eyes on the prize, you're making this thing. And then once the show is done, I have felt over and over in my life, this feeling of all of this time and space opens up. Pardon me, I just burped. And I'm sorry, wasn't that touching? And any unprocessed things that had sort of been back burnered just had time to mix my metaphors just to flow into that space. And so I have to say, I know how hard you've been working. And I'm not surprised that with a little, just a tiny little bit of free time,
I filled it. I filled it right up.
I filled it with my tears. I filled it with my salty human tears.
It's been really interesting, though, I have to say, because it has been, while it's sadness and it's tears, I've also, at the same time, because we hold multitudes, I've also been able to be like, wow, so here's a well of sadness. I'm also feeling incredibly grateful and incredibly privileged and incredibly thankful that so far, surviving the pandemic and, so it's such a intense mix. It's a cocktail.
Tossed salad.
Yeah.
You got your salad tossed in there. Oh no. What kind of podcast is this? It's a salad podcast. We have anything else about that, Cams? I don't want to.
No, I just want to say to anyone who's out there listening, who's feeling that, I'm with you.
Sweet little babies. Love our sweet little sparkling babies.
Well, how are you? What's going on with you?
I am well, thank you. Always, every day, grateful to still be healthy during a pandemic, to be doing work from the safety of my home, all that sort of jazz. So grateful there. I'll tell you what I'm excited about.
What are you excited about?
I'm excited about the Spark File 2021 New Year Creativity Kickoff, a 3-day virtual retreat on January 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. We have been making magic behind the scenes, building something special, sending out gifts,
like little elves,
like little tinkering elves. So I'm excited. It sounds like we've got an amazing group of people that are coming together.
Oh my God, Suze, these people, we have such an eclectic group of artists and
global.
Since it's virtual now, we are all over Scotland and Canada and all over the United States. So it's super, super excited. I can't wait to get all of these people in the same virtual room.
I know. I was packing up all the workshop presents that people should be receiving, and I keep just checking. Has anything arrived at your house?
Nothing has arrived here yet.
I think it's going to start dropping. And I'm excited for people to get their little gifties. Now, technically speaking, people had to sign up by December 20th to get their goodies. But I don't know if somebody was, say, listening to this podcast with the day it came out. And maybe, I don't know, maybe you were like, I didn't exactly get what I wanted for the holidays. I'm going to give myself something, or I'm going to guilt somebody else into giving me this workshop. Or if somebody was so inclined to sign up right away, we could do our best to try to get them gifties in time for the workshop. Yeah. And I guess at the very least, it would arrive after the workshop, but those gifts are evergreen.
We can do our enjoy them best.
We can do our level best. But so that's something I'm very excited about.
Yeah. And I just really love, if you want to give yourself a gift, now the presents are opened and you're thinking about next year and how to get yourself like on the right foot.
Yeah.
From the jump, from day one.
I think it's a pretty powerful way to start the new year, but also really effing fun if I do say so myself. And I do say so.
You do really say so. Fun. And you sing so. I really
sing
impressed.
So myself. So here's a little update. We got a few updates. So our friend Laura Coward. Hi, Laura Coward. Laura Coward will be at the workshop.
Yes.
Laura Coward, beautiful writer. Beautiful writer.
Beautiful person.
We first were exposed to Laura when we read a mailbag letter that she sent to us about shadow threads. And the writing was so great. And now we're happy to know Laura Coward. But she shared with us that John Mulaney has been working as a staff writer for Seth Meyers, which I thought was so amazing. And when he talked about it, he said that it was because he knew himself to be a person who thrived when they had structure in their lives. I love it when people have self-awareness around what works for them as a human being and as a creative. And he seemed to be very clear. And his psychiatrist was like, why don't you get a job like that where you have structure? So he had been working as a staff writer at Seth Meyers. And then we just learned that he checked himself into rehab to deal with his addictions.
Yeah, I'm glad he did.
That is a person who has brought us so much joy and so many sparks. And I, on behalf of the Spark File, which I'm sure he'll never listen to, we send love through the universe to John Mulaney and anybody who's going through that.
We absolutely send that love. I'm really thankful because it sounds to me, and we only know what we read. Come on, we don't have an inside track on him, but it sounds to me that he's been very responsible and serious about his sobriety. And, when he relapsed, he knew that he needed to take action.
One of the things I love about John Mulaney is his candor around everything, including things like his own addictions and the way that he takes that lived experience and he puts it into his work. And so I hope that he gets healthy and that he continues to do that with this experience that he's having now.
Yep. We need more Mulaney in our lives.
Another update that several people sent to us, is updates on the finder of the Forest Fen treasure.
The armchair treasure hunt, Spark, that you did. I freaking loved it.
Right.
Loved it.
So if you haven't listened to it, pause this episode. No, just kidding. I did this episode that featured Sparks about the Forest Fen treasure hunt, which was recently solved. I think we're all up to date on that. Ooh, spoilers if we're not. And
you can stop searching now. It's been found.
We can come back in from the mountains. We did an update where we talked about how the finder found the treasure, and it was verified by Forrest Fenn that the treasure had been found, but Forrest Fenn and the finder agreed that the finder would remain anonymous, and they would also keep the location where the treasure was found. They would not reveal the location because it was very, it's not a tourist destination. It was special and significant to Forrest Fenn, and became special and significant for the finder because they spent so much time on the ground searching for the treasure there. And they agreed that they would not reveal the location because they didn't want it to get trampled by all the treasure seekers who were curious about it and wanted to visit it. And they were like, instead of destroying it, we're going to keep it a secret. And they still have kept it a secret, but the identity of the finder of the Forrest Fenn treasure has been revealed. His name is Jack Stueff. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but Jack is a 32-year-old Michigan native and a medical student. And the reason why Jack had to basically out himself as the finder of this treasure is because there was litigation against Forrest Fenn and then Forrest Fenn's estate, because remember that Barbara, that real estate woman, I think she's from Chicago. She claimed that somebody had hacked into her computer and found her solution and beat her to the treasure before she could get there, which I have to say, come on, Barbara. Come on. But because when Forrest Fenn passed away, spoiler alert, that also happened. When Forrest Fenn passed away, the lawsuit then named the heirs to Forrest Fenn's estate, including the treasure. So I think that Jack Stueff knew that it was just a matter of days before his identity would be surfaced because of this lawsuit. And so he had been in conversation with this writer and journalist from Outside Magazine by the name of Daniel Barbarisi, and they had already been in communication. It's actually super interesting. There's a really, really interesting article on outsideonline.com if you want to read how this was interesting, how the journalist Daniel Barbarisi was able to get into contact with Jack Stueff without knowing his identity.
Whoa.
Yes. So actually, I'm going to say this part because I thought it was really clever. If you remember, the finder of the Forrest Fenn treasure posted a blog on medium.com. It was anonymous, and there's not an easy way for you to get in touch with the writer of these anonymous posts on medium.com. But this writer, Daniel Barbarisi, knew that you could highlight a passage from the article, from the post, and you could send a message notifying the author that it required their attention because there were errors or something that needed correction. And in this way, that Daniel used the limited characters that were available to send a message saying, I'm a writer from Outside Magazine. You don't have to reveal your identity, but I'd love to be in touch. And that's how he began a correspondence with this anonymous person.
So smart.
So sparkish. So anyway, they had already been in communication, but Daniel Barbarisi, this writer from Outside Magazine, wasn't pressing the finder of the treasure to reveal their identity. He was just doing research for a book he was writing about the Forrest Fenn treasure and about the phenomena around it and about the treasure seekers. And then because they had that relationship developed when litigation was on the horizon and Jack was about to be outed by the legal process, he was like, I'm going to tell you who I am. He still will not say where that treasure was found to protect the land on which it was found.
Smart.
But I did just want to share a little bit from the article because I thought this was so... it just tickled my brain. So I just wanted to share it. If you haven't listened to that Spark that I did about armchair treasure hunts, you can listen to this and go back or never go back. It's up to you. But I just wanted to read this passage. This is Daniel Barbarisi's writing in Outside Magazine. Listening to Stueff talk about it, he seems to make it so attainable, so simple. The key was really just understanding Forrest Fenn. Stueff hunted solo, never discussed his search with others, stayed away from the blogs after his initial looks at them, and tried hard not to get caught up in any groupthink. He did his utmost just to focus on Fenn's words and primary sources and understand those as best he could. I don't want to ruin this treasure hunt by saying it was made for an English major, but it's based on a close read of the text, Stu have said. I mean, that's what it is. It's having the correct interpretation of a poem. I understood him by reading his words and listening to him talk over and over and over and over again, and seeking out anything I could get my hands on that told me who he was. When asked if figuring out the puzzles required the use of anagrams or GPS coordinates or sophisticated codes of any sort, Stewart was clear in his response. No, he says, but I don't want to say that people are stupid for thinking those things were valid or that they were being irrational. I think Forrest designed this to be fun, and whatever people got out of it that gave them fun, I think to me is rational, and they were doing it right in that way. The solution, Stewart says, is tied far more to understanding Fenn's emotions and to a close examination of the poem itself than to puzzle-solving skills. Fenn simply didn't care about those kinds of things. He was more interested in adventure, legacy, history, narrative. I mean, he was coming to this not from the perspective of being a huge fan of puzzles or a puzzle master. He was not a fan of armchair treasure hunts. Hey, his point of reference, his spark, if you will, was pirates. His purpose was not to create a great puzzle and show everyone how smart and slick he was. His purpose was this weird idea to entomb himself and to create a historic legend. None of that supports armchair solutions, and he was open about that. I just thought that was so interesting that this Jack Stewart was able to successfully key into what moved the man who was sparked to create this Forrest Fenn treasure hunt.
It makes so much sense to, you need to understand the person who created it. But I really love the respect that he's like showing all the other people by saying, like, it makes sense that you tried these other things too. And all of that is part of the game. And
I thought it was interesting, though, if you want to solve one of these, to understand the artist, to understand the mind of the artist that made it.
Yep.
Is seems like it could be really key. Anyway, those are some updates for you. Sparks, Cam.
Sparks.
Speaking of sparks.
You got one?
You got one?
I got one. You got one?
I think you're going first.
I am up first. I was just checking, making sure you have one.
Is that a test? You got one?
Do you have yours?
What if I was like, you're up first, and then you were like, do you have one? And I was like, I fully didn't prepare a spark today.
No. But I'm here to listen to yours.
There could be a day when that happens. There might be a day when that happens.
It could happen. Yeah.
If I wasn't, like, if I had been sick, like say I had appendicitis last week, just as an example, and I was well enough to show up and do this, but I hadn't had time or capacity to write the spark, I think we should still do it. I think you should give me a spark.
I would
and then if you had appendicitis, I give you a spark.
That sounds great. That's our plan.
Deal.
Should appendicitis creep up on either one of us, which I hope it doesn't, but now we have a plan if it does.
Lord willing.
I like it.
All right.
I like it.
So without any further ado,
I'm up. Suze, I'm kind of excited about this one. It's one that's, it's bigger. It's bigger than I could possibly cover in this. So I'm gonna give some highlights. Okay. So here's the thing. I came across a comic in the New Yorker recently, and the title was How Dating During a Pandemic is Like Being in a Jane Austen Novel. It was written by Amy Collier, and it gave me a giggle. I mean, such a nerdy giggle, but I really liked it. So here's a few highlights. How dating during a pandemic is like being in a Jane Austen novel.
I'm here for it.
It's a long, drawn-out affair composed of public meetings. The main characters lead quiet domestic lives. You regularly inquire about the health of each other's family members. Includes many brisk walks outdoors. You inform your friends who lead tranquil lives full of cooking and evenings at home of recent romantic developments through vividly written correspondence.
Oh my God.
And you and your prospective future husband barely touch. Those are just a few highlights, but I got a giggle out of it because, It's well done. And there's more to it. So take a look at it in the New Yorker. It's super fun.
She has a point.
But after I got done giggling at this, two things went through my mind. One, I'm really thankful I'm not attempting to date during a pandemic because
oh my God,
it sounds like it would suck.
Fuck that shit.
And number two, I fucking love Jane Austen. I fucking love Jane Austen novels. I love. And that is what I want to talk about today. I have given considerable thought to what exactly sparks me about Jane Austen novels. And I'll widen that scope to, to other writers as well. I can't get enough of period pieces written about life in 19th century and 20th century England specifically.
All right.
I just freaking devour it as quickly as I can find it. And frankly, I can't understand why the BBC can't just crank out more of it. I mean, what are they doing?
Wow.
I want them on the scale of like the Hallmark Channel. I don't know why there isn't a channel that isn't playing these movies from dusk till dawn.
What does it do for you? What does it give to you? What does it make you feel?
Guess what?
Oh,
I have broken it down. I've narrowed it down to like the
graphs and charts.
I do. I'll post those. But I've broken it down to like the top 4 things just because, I could talk on this for hours upon hours.
Shit.
But I have to limit myself.
All right.
Okay. So these are just 4 things. But before I launch into it, I feel like I should just say, in case there's any listeners who do not know of whom I speak when I say the name Jane Austen, well, seriously, put down this podcast and pick up one of her books.
Pick up a book.
Stat.
Can I admit to you right now,
Yeah.
I just want a full disclosure, counselor.
Yes.
I have enjoyed many a Jane Austen movie adaptation.
Yeah.
I have never read a single word of a Jane Austen book.
I think that's a fine confession to make. I think that when I speak of these things, I'm speaking of in book form and in movie form. So,
all right.
So it's the movies that I can't stop like digesting, and I can't get. They just don't seem to make them fast enough.
You just can't get enough.
I just can't get enough. Oh, okay. So here's the thing. So if you don't know Jane Austen, you need to know Jane Austen.
Get to know Jane Austen.
She wrote Sense and Sensibility, Pride and Prejudice, Mansfield Park, Emma, and several others that were published after her death, Persuasion, Sanditon, etc. She lived from 1775 to 1817. She was only 41 years old when she died, Suze.
Oh,
I did not know that. And like most women of her time, all of her books were published anonymously because writing was not considered a suitable career for women. No joke, Susan. Her first novel, Sense and Sensibility, was published with the title Sense and Sensibility, and underneath it, by a lady.
Oh my God.
By a lady. Yes.
I just want to say I'm amazed. It's so amazing to me. I don't know. It's crazy to me that somebody who lived from 1775 to 1817, like that the work lives on. So kudos to the legacy. But I'm amazed when somebody gets that much creative work done in their lifetime.
Yes.
And I'm further amazed when they get that much creative work done in their lifetime under a veil of secrecy.
No,
holy
totally
fucking shit.
Anonymous.
I can barely get shit done out loud and proud. But the weight of like having to do it.
Yeah.
Maybe she could be out to the people around her. Yeah. But still.
But her name was never going to appear on it. It was very unproper and unladylike to be doing like press for your latest book, no book tours, things like that. Nope.
Was her stuff well read in her lifetime?
It was.
Like, did she know she was successful?
She did, because she made money. But it was limited in certain ways because of the way they would publish female written books. They would have either a buyout or some kind of arrangement where the publisher would put up the money to publish it, and then if it sold well enough, then after a certain point, the author would get money. So she did make a good amount of money in her lifetime, but she didn't end up, like, her family had other financial troubles. And so she didn't end up like really high on the hog or anything, but she was able to help her family.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
what an accomplishment.
It's huge.
That is huge.
And I just can't get over, like, the first novel being, quote, by a lady. And then all the other books were labeled by the writer of Sense and Sensibility. So nowhere on any of her books in her lifetime was her name mentioned, which I just think is flippin' amazing.
Makes my mind boggle.
Yep. Okay, but
amazing.
Here we go.
Okay,
it's my top 4 fascinations and sparks. And I'm so nerdy because I'm like, I can talk so much longer. But okay,
this feels like such a good spark for the holidays. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it just has like, I'm feeling it. I'm here for it. Okay, sorry. I'm gonna stop interrupting you. Hit me with the top 4, baby.
Number 1, top of the list, repressed sexual tension. Is there anything better than repressed sexual tension? I don't think so. And when you can create an entire world where, like, the tiniest touch of a hand is electrifying and scandalous. Oh my God, it's so thrilling. And my most favorite thing in the world is when there's great sexual chemistry and that breath right before a kiss. Like, when you see 2 actors really do that right, it's so breathtaking. And of course, in real life, if you're kissing the right person, it's literally intoxicating.
Oh my God. That Pride and Prejudice with Keira Knightley.
Yes.
Yes. Is it Matthew McFadden? Oh my God.
Suze,
they nailed
literally
it.
The next thing that I was about to say to you is that I know that you and I both love the version of Pride and Prejudice with Keira Knightley as Elizabeth Bennet and Matthew McFadden as Darcy.
So good. And that's if you need a spark for a good holiday movie to watch, not even that it's like that holiday-rific, but there's some ball scenes where they have big dances
and family dynamics. Always reminds me of the holidays. Yeah,
that is true. That is true. I think I might have said this on the podcast. I don't remember because real life and podcast life bleed together. But the other night, we were doing the dance that we do when we sit to watch television. And it's like, what do you want to watch? What do you want to watch? And there's that Venn diagram of things that we can both agree on. And then there's things that it's like, I will indulge you as you watch the Great British Baking Competition. And I will indulge you as you watch a James Bond movie. But I just took a leap, took a risk, took a chance. And I put on the Keira Knightley Pride and Prejudice.
Yes.
Have I talked about this on the podcast?
Yes.
And Nathan, like, it from the jump, the cinematography, the storytelling, the acting, all of it. Nathan, my sweet baby Nathan, was like, this is great. And I was like, it is great.
Good. And it holds up. That is now 15 years old. It's 2005. And of course, I watch it at least once a year. It's one of those, like, if it's on television and I'm scrolling, I have to stop. I wish there were more, like, when you talk about having just like an Austen channel, all Austen all the time. Yeah. And then in the evenings after hours, it goes into like Austen After Dark and it gets like, it's just like a little more softcore, but I wish there were more movies like that. Yeah. I mean, I think there's other, there's like Merchant Ivory films as well that I would say fall into this category, but there's a little bit more lightness to Jane Austen. There's not enough of them. We need more. So good. So good. And sometimes now, and then I'll let you get back to you because we're only on number 1. But sometimes now when I watch movies and it's a bunch of white people talking, I'm like, that's a lot of fucking white people. Well, and but that movie is so good. It's so good that I'm like, I'm going to give you a pass
Keira Knightley, Pride and Prejudice, because you're such a fucking good movie.
Happy to say there's a new show on Netflix. I think that is like a modernized. It's by Shonda
Rhimes.
It's Shonda Rhimes, yeah, and it is. I think the representation across the board is amazing, but it is set in a period piece in this time. I'm trying to remember Bridgerton. Does that sound right?
I want to. Can I look?
Yes,
it up really
yes. Let's get that right. I can't wait. I think it starts on Christmas Day.
Oh my God, Shonda!
Right,
Bridgerton. I hope it's. I just saw a headline that says Bridgerton is a horny, bingeable delight.
Okay,
so, great.
So Bridgerton might be the nighttime. Selection.
that's Austen After Dark.
Yes, that's Austen After Dark. Because I do think, like, to your point, I completely agree. We need to see more representation, but Shonda may help us out here, and we can see.
Dig it.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that.
Great, but
starts on Christmas Day.
Back to your Spark.
So yeah, Matthew McFadden. I'm obsessed with him, and now I will watch anything that he's in, and. Like he's in Succession right now, which he's phenomenal.
He sure is. He's phenomenal.
Oh my God. But the way he barely touches her hand to help her into the carriage that one time, and you can feel the spark. That's beautiful direction by Joe Wright for sure. That's all in the way he directed that moment. But it's like it catches your breath, and all it is like his hand touching hers for 1 second. Fucking love it. Also, I don't know about you. I'm not sure if we agree on this, but I also love the Sense and Sensibility version with Emma Thompson and Kate Winslet. I love the simmering tension between Emma Thompson and Hugh Grant, and Alan fucking Rickman is so amazing. That moment when Marianne...
Who does Alan Rickman play?
Colonel, what's his name?
Colonel Mustard.
Colonel Mustard in the conservatory. Yes. Colonel Brandon.
I don't think I know it very well. I don't think I know it well enough to have an opinion about it, Cams.
Suze,
is that going to be my holiday movie?
Please watch it, because it was directed by Ang Lee, and the shots of the English countryside are so exquisite. But I've gotten off track. The cinematography isn't even in my top 4, but it should be. Sorry. But so I'm talking now about the repressed sexual tension.
That's right.
So yeah,
where were we?
Sexual tension. Myself worked up. I can't remember.
Listeners, if we haven't already mentioned that listener discretion is advised.
Listen, here's where I literally sound like a grandma. So youngins, please forgive me. I please know that I am completely in support of sexual revolutions and sexual freedoms, and I'm completely proud of how far we've come.
Sex positive, baby.
In regard to sexual expression without shame, I'm totally here for it. However, indulge grandma for a minute. There is something so delicious about the delayed satisfaction that comes from wanting something so badly, something that you cannot have right away for whatever reason. And that wanting simmers for such a long time before being able to be enjoyed. There's something to it, and Jane Austen does it.
She's delivering the goods.
That's right. So number 2.
Through time and space, delivering the goods.
Yes.
Getting your yayas worked out from 1775.
So another thing I live for is the intellectual insult. And Jane Austen, she can do it where sometimes you're not even sure if it is an insult or not. You have to, sometimes the person has been insulted and they're not even aware of it. Sometimes it's just a scathing fucking burn. And she is a master of it. She's a master.
Do you have any examples?
Sure. So in Sense and Sensibility, Marianne describes Colonel Brandon as just the kind of man who everybody speaks well of and no one cares about, whom all are delighted to see and no one remembers to talk to. That hurts.
You got burned.
That hurts. In Pride and Prejudice, I have not the pleasure of understanding you, which really means you're not making any fucking sense. But but said so politely,
so passive aggressively, so poetic and passive aggressive.
Right? There's a million of them, but she's so. I think I'm drawn to these types of insults because I feel such joy when a character who is confined by the appropriate behaviors of society finds a way to just slice a person to shreds while still remaining civil. You know what I mean? They're still fitting in it. And I don't know, this may be a stretch, but I tried to think like, why do I enjoy this so much? And for me, I think there have been a lot of times in my life when my kindness has been interpreted as weakness. And eventually I'm pushed too far. And then I make it clear that I will not be tread upon. And there's been times in my life when people have been like, oh, whoa, I didn't know you could be so, whatever.
Fiery.
Fiery. Yeah. So rude, be such a bitch, any fill in the blank. And it really frustrates me because, of course, I can be. I hold multitudes, but I really do prefer to resolve things in the kindest of ways if possible. But then I find that some people just don't respect you until you indicate that you can match them at being a dick.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, wow, I didn't know you had that side. And I always marvel at that, Suze, because I think, oh, okay, so you respect me now, but it really says more about you that you needed to push me that far, that you needed to see me be a bitch in order to respect me. It says more about that person than it says about me. And I think that's why it's so damn satisfying to read or watch these characters in Jane Austen's writing, like really pack a punch, because her heroines are not the wealthiest or the most beautiful or the highest ranking, but they have their wit and they have their intellect and they can get away with expressing quite a bit without stepping outside of the bounds.
Don't you think it's also super satisfying because we as mere mortals frequently move through the world and something will happen, somebody will say something or do something, and we'll be at a loss for how to respond in the moment.
Yes.
And then an hour later or a week later or a year later, we might be like, oh, what I should have said was, and these characters have the benefit of having a great ghostwriter, aka Jane Austen.
That's right.
Who is putting these great words in their mouths that they just have at their fingertips. And so there's satisfaction in that too.
That's exactly it. Because in these moments where I'm pushed and what I wish I could do is slice someone just enough to say, see, you're not going to walk on me, but also I'm still
fuck
kind.
With me and find out.
Fuck around and find out. But also,
I always get it wrong. Fuck around and find out.
But also, I'm still kind, and I can live with myself at the night. At the end of the night, because I stayed within the boundaries of respectable conversation.
Yes.
And she always has, it's exactly what you said. She always has the language right there on hand.
And it's just the right temperature and it's just the right dose.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's just
totally.
Okay. So number 3, I'm totally sparked by the history of how women have been treated. It's unbelievable to me that we're really not that far from being considered our husband's possession. And even though these movies are romanticized versions of life in the 1800s, and I'm tempted, I don't know about you, but when I watch them, I'm like, it's all so simple and it's all so, but no, you really can't get around the message, the plight of women who could not earn their own wage, could not inherit any money, could not own land. And if they were privileged enough to be born into society, they had to follow incredibly strict rules and regulations in regard to their behavior and self-expression. oh my God. And to have to choose a husband without really spending any time alone with them, that just makes it fucking luck of the draw, you know?
Yeah.
The very fact that Jane Austen had to publish anonymously and her brother had to basically sponsor her in order to get the publisher to agree. Oh, did I say this? Did I tell you that when she died at her funeral, she was praised for, quote, extraordinary endowments of her mind, but not one mention of her writing. Not one.
Wow.
At her funeral, at her burial site. Nope.
Because it still had to be kept a secret?
It just was not ladylike. It was like, it was not proper.
Let's just take a second and thank our privilege that we don't have to live like that anymore.
Oh my God.
There's other things. There are other walls that still need to come down.
Shockingly, still more work to do, but yeah.
God. Yeah. Good God, that you can't even talk about it at the graveside.
It's unbelievable that you couldn't say her accomplishments included these things. Yeah.
Wow.
So several of her novels address these injustices outright. And, you know, her characters are very vocal about it. Wow. But somehow the characters do turn out all right in the end because they do find suitable husbands and all, you know. But I think about how freaking hard life must have been at that time for women. Literally everything was hard.
Cams, this is such a good example, though, of if you have to live through it, you might as well get to make something out of it. It is such a good example of she was living under this sort of societal set of mores, and she fed it straight into her work. Not that it could be acknowledged out loud in, you know, polite society, but it's amazing that she was still able to add her voice to the probably like the criticism.
Yeah, against all odds, against all of the barriers.
Yeah.
Like
it's kind of extraordinary.
So many of us, I think, feel like we've got a bunch of barriers between us and our creativity. And she had, you know, additional barriers, just one that it was not acceptable. And but everything that women did at that time was hard. When just thinking about like preparing a meal requires 2 hours time.
A day, 2 hours. Are you
more than, you know.
Oh my God.
Everything is waiting. You couldn't take any action as a woman. And I think that must have been excruciating. Everything had rules about when you could visit a person, how you could visit, under what conditions would it be appropriate, and any misstep could ruin them altogether, which leads me to number 4. In a related note, I am and have for a long time been super sparked by the idea of shame and the role that it plays in society. This is kind of a topic I'm obsessed with. So just go with me here for a second.
I'm with you.
In the 1800s, there was a very strict adherence to proper society rules if you were a member of the society. And there was somewhat of a caste system. At the top were those with titles and landowners. And if you were a member of the upper class, you had to follow what was deemed as proper behavior. And if you didn't, you were literally outcast. If you were outcast, anyone who wanted to remain accepted in society was required to banish you. Like literally could not be seen talking to you. It was brutal. But then again, the things that you would be outcast for are pretty bad. Lying, being discovered as a liar or a cheat, that would do it. So you had to keep your word. You had to be a person of honor. And the shaming would moderate the collective behavior. And even though this might sound harsh, sociologists talk about shame as an essential component of any functioning society. If you think about it, religion plays this part and has for thousands of years. It plays the part of behavior modification. The idea that someone or a certain entity is going to be the judge of you at some point, either now or later. And it's meant to deter you from behaving badly. In Christianity, of course, specifically, it's meant to keep you from committing one of the cardinal sins. I think I'm really fascinated by this topic because we as a society right now are moving in two really interesting directions. On the one hand, we're moving more in the direction of no shame about our bodies, our sexuality, our personal choices regarding career and parenthood or religion, etc. And generally, I'm on board with that. On the other hand, we're also moving in the direction of complete shame when it comes to certain things, and the idea of cancel culture. It's the very raw and absolute admonishment by shame. And we can do it in a much faster and a much wider scale than we could do it before due to social media. But in that way, we're not so different from the 1800s when a man who jilted a woman at the altar could lose his job, his title, his friends, and his place in society. The same can happen now to a man who is accused of sexually harassing a woman at work, for example. So I don't have all the answers on this, but I like to dig my hands into this topic because I think it's fascinating. I know men who really started to examine their own behavior after the Me Too movement. And that reflection is not a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. I don't think we should all live in fear of mistakes we've made in the past. But I do think being compelled for some self-reflection is essential. I think shame can be an incredible tool in society to regulate behavior as long as we can agree upon and be clear about where the line is. For example, sexual assault, rape, racism, human rights. I am so on board with taking a hard line about people feeling shame about any of those behaviors. But then there's politics or the idea that people are shamed simply for having a different opinion or a different viewpoint about things. And I think it can be really scary to live in a world where shame or cancellation is threatened, but it's unclear what the rules are. Do you know what I mean? Like the key to shame as a motivator, I think, is having a collective agreement of our values as a society. And unfortunately, we're living in a time period where we don't have agreement on what the values are. And I think it leads to anxiety about it. Yeah. Yeah.
So like in the past, it's sort of like you've got the 10 commandments. They're pretty fucking clear. Yeah. They're carved into a tablet. But now literally sometimes things can happen where something that was acceptable to neutral to tolerated, a statement or something to say last week, like the thinking on it may have evolved and you may get canceled for it this week. And so that is the nature though, I feel like of, I don't know, this is a half-baked thought, but things are evolving and changing. And I do think that change is good. I fucking hate cancel culture so much, unless it's like you're a monster. If you're Harvey Weinstein, like cancel away. But I just feel like it doesn't make space for what you're talking about, which is ambiguity around things. And it also doesn't make space for people to like know better, learn evolve, do better, grow. It's just sort of like, no, you're done, you're finished. And I'm just like, there are times when I'm like, are they really finished?
I agree. And I think that, again, if we could agree as a society that certain, acts of racism, we can agree are beyond the pale and you deserve to be shamed / canceled if that is how you're going to behave. But we're literally living in a time where some of those things get defended. Do you know what I mean? Where we have groups of people who are like, yeah, we can agree on that 100%. And then we have groups of people who are like, no, that's, they shouldn't get canceled for that. So I think it's leading to such a tumultuous time because we're not aligned on our values.
Yeah. And I don't know that we're going to get to a place where we're aligned on our values either.
I know, and that bums me out. But I am sparked by the idea of shame as a useful tool. And it's weird saying that because I'm not for personal shame, but I am for personal reflection. So can we get to where we can learn and improve our behaviors without feeling unnecessary shame?
Right. And I also think I'm not for shaming people. Yeah. I think that's, I don't know that that's healthy or productive, but I know that in my work, in the things that I make, that shame is often a really good, if I'm looking back over my life and I'm sort of maybe looking for potential sparks that I could make stuff out of from my own lived experience. Sometimes if there's the visceral feeling of shame attached to something, I'm like, there's something in there that may have some creative juice. Yeah. So there's also, that's another application
that could be
for shame.
Useful. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So all of these sparks are completely lit up by Jane Austen and her fellow writers in the 1800s. In fact, I learned a few things to expand my own horizons. There is a book called Not Just Jane by Shelley DeWeese, and it's about the 7 women besides Jane Austen who were writing and publishing novels in the 1800s. I'm super interested in that. And I just discovered Persephone books, which I can't be more delighted about. I ordered 5 books to start with.
What? Tell me more.
Persephone Books is an independent publisher in London that reprints works mostly by women writers in the late 19th and 20th centuries. Also a few males, but mostly women. And the books are, they are all consistently, they're all in this gray cover. They're titled, of course, but they're also numbered, and there's only 135 of them. And the end paper, when you open it up, the end paper on the inside of each one is different. And they're just these works of art. And I cannot wait to dig into these stories. Not all of them are life in the Victorian era, but some of them are. And I just think about just like Christopher Marlowe was to Shakespeare and Salieri was to Mozart. I really believe there are great undiscovered writers out there, especially when you realize how suppressed the women writers were. So many of them, we would never know their names. So what do we make of it, Sue? Well, an adaptation has been made of Jane Austen's work, and I'm all for more of it. So please keep those coming. I think the Hallmark Channel is capitalizing on the repressed sexual tension thing in all of the holiday movies. So that's happening. I'll take it until we can have this Jane Austen channel. Personally, I'm tempted to do something that my friends Bryn and Nancy have done, which is, this is so nerdy. I love them. I love this idea so much, but they have gone to do these things where they experience life in Victorian times at these living history adventures. They did one that wasn't Jane Austen related, but it was totally period costumes, afternoon teas, card games, and it culminated in a ball. It just sounds delightful. Yeah. And I think they even booked a specifically Jane Austen one this year, which must have gotten canceled. And Bryn and Nancy, if you're listening, I've been remiss about asking you about it, but I'm gonna find out. But really, I would love for someone to create something that explores the role of shame in our society, the good and the bad of it. We're in such an interesting moment in history right now regarding shame, where I think the younger generation is really leading the way and helping us all release the shame that we've associated with certain things for decades or even centuries, like shame around sex and our bodies and our beliefs. And it's time to let go of that. But I'd love to see something that explores, like, in what way do we need shame in order to inspire self-reflection and personal growth, or to inspire better behavior for those who want to be part of a collective society. I just think it's a hot spark that needs exploring.
I wonder if has been explored, is being explored as we speak.
It could be. And if so, I want to know about it.
Hot sparks.
So there's many people who can sum up the genius of Jane Austen much better than I can. Writer James Collins says, I find that reading Jane Austen helps me clarify ethical choices, helps me figure out a way to live with integrity in the corrupt world, even helps me adopt the proper tone and manner in dealing with others. Reading Austen, I sometimes feel as if my morals are a wobbly figurine that her hand reaches out and steadies. And which is a neat idea. And which writer Amy Bloom says, Jane Austen is, for me, the best writer for anyone who believes in love more than romance, who cares more for the private than the public. She understands that men and women have to grow up in order to deserve and achieve great love, that some suffering is necessary, and that people who mistake the desirable object for the one necessary and essential love will get what they deserve. Oh, Jane Austen, to quote you back to you, if I loved you less, I might be able to talk about it more. And that's my spark.
Yay, I'm going to watch that movie.
So many movies.
Good spark. And those books sound gorgeous.
Oh my God, I cannot wait to show you. I can't wait to show you.
Coming in hot. Fresh sparks. Back in a second. All right. Welcome back, gentle sparklers.
Here we are.
You know, Cams, I was knee deep into a spark this week that was something more, let's say, contemplative, something a little, and I was like, and completely useful, completely would be useful to us and to the listeners. And then I was like, oh, F this S. This year has been hard. It's the holidays. Let's party.
Enough already.
And I was like, let's do something that feels less like it would be of use and service. And let's just let's rock out.
Yes.
So, then I remembered that tucked deep into my spark file, I have been saving this spark for about a year and a half, waiting for it to time out, maybe like with the holidays, the most wonderful time of the year, some say. And so I was like, do that, Susan. So my spark this week is toys, Cammie, and my spark is toys. Toys.
Oh my God.
Not burying the lead. It's toys.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So many questions.
Well, maybe I'll have answers, but this is one of those sparks that shoots in so many different directions that there's a lot of ground I can promise you we will not be covering. Okay. I will say, as writing teachers and as creativity coaches, we frequently give our clients prompts to spark their creativity. And one of the prompts that I have observed to be very powerful is the word toys. Like if you ask a person, in fact, everybody, unless you're driving, close your eyes. If you're walking or moving something heavy, don't close your eyes. But if you can, close your eyes. And if I ask you, Cammie, and you sparklers, what your favorite childhood toy was, or the best toy you ever received as a kid, or the toy you always wanted but you never got, it is like instant creative time travel. Everybody, you can open your eyes. So for so many people who haven't blocked out their childhood, even relatively modest toys that were very beloved or are very specific in their memory, they can be a powerful creative spark. So when you ask people to share about their childhood toys, it is like putting them in a time machine and bringing the past into the present moment in a really evocative way. Cams, do you remember one of your favorite toys as a kid, or one that you wanted but you didn't get? What you got for me?
I loved playing with people. You know, those Fisher Price people.
Like, yes!
And also Weeble wobbles, but they don't fall down.
Oh my God,
So though I mix them together, the Weebles lived in the people neighborhood and all of them got along great. So
integration.
Yes,
I like it.
Love it. Yeah, people.
Oh, yeah. And when you think about them and you talk about them and you share about them, does it give you a feeling?
Yes. I mean, basically we somehow got a hand-me-down like house, I think a people house and a people car.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, we used little blocks and albums to put together a bigger house for the people.
So you would take like the record album cases and make your own, like an A-frame?
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Or stack them up. Yeah, stack them up like in boxes, so make our own little furniture.
I think toys are super evocative. I had a few that are very near and dear to my heart, but there is one that is incredibly potent for me. It was a doll that I loved as a child. I was obsessed with this doll. I got it for Christmas my first grade year in school, and it was called a Draw a Face doll. And I'll just describe it to you. I think I might have talked about it on the pod. No, I don't think I have talked about it on the podcast. But I've talked about it. I have talked about it publicly. It was a soft-bodied doll. It was made out of primary colored fabric, so like red and blue, and it had a flat pink plastic face, and you could draw on that pink plastic, and it would make this sort of like bright drawing of wherever your finger stroked. So you could draw the eyes, the nose in bright pink colors. And then when you squeezed the tummy of the doll, it erased the face and you could draw a new face. And that
seems
loved
a little creepy, but amazing.
Oh my God, Cammie, and check your judgment. It was so, this doll, I loved it so much.
I'm going to Google it too.
You won't find it. It was extremely obscure.
So did you draw different expressions so that the doll would be feeling different things?
That's right. You could draw anything. And as an artistic child, I really enjoyed that. And I felt like it was not like any other doll I had ever seen. It felt very special. And I took it after the holiday break. I went back to Catholic school, first grade. I had a very, very, very mean principal, Sister Adriana, and I took my doll in for show and tell, and I showed the doll, and she was so delighted that I remember she came and she like put her arms around me and then let me show it to other classes. And so this doll seemed to have magical properties that made our fucking nightmare nun principal kind for a moment. God. So I was obsessed with this doll.
Amazing.
Loved this doll. So the last time I remember seeing the doll, I was in college, and I remember seeing it on top of a box. It was upstairs at this house that I grew up in, that my sister now lives in, and then I never saw it again. The doll like vanished, and I thought about this doll all the time, and I lamented its loss, and I had such fond associations with this doll. So I wrote about it we used to do a blog for Title of Show, and I wrote about it on the blog like in 2007 or so, and I will be damned if someone didn't find that doll and not the doll that I had, but they found a copy of the doll. they gave it back to me.
No
And
way.
yes, it was like this piece of unfinished business was completed in my mind. So Chrissy Fullerton reunited me with that beloved doll. Thank you, Chrissy.
Chrissy, that is amazing. Oh,
It was
my
amazing.
God.
It was amazing. And I still have it. And you know what I think I'm going to do? I think I'm having shelves put in behind my desk. And we live in a Zoom world. So now everybody can see if you're teaching. I think I'm going to put that little doll right behind me so you all have a visual on
Now,
it.
did the doll have a name? Did you say?
Well, the doll, I think I called it the Little Red Riding Hood doll because it looked like it had on a little red outfit and sort of this peaked thing like the top of a hood, but not riding hood, writing,
Yes.
WRITING. But I don't know. I thought I had gotten that from the packaging, but I know what the packaging looks like, and I don't think that's what it was called. In any event, that was, I guess, my name.
Amazing.
So as I've been preparing for the Spark, I've been talking to people about their, toys growing up. And Nathan told me that when he was little, growing up in Nevada, they were living in and their parents were working in a casino and gambling culture. And so when he was about 8 or 9, the kids in his neighborhood came up with a way for them to trade their toys that they had grown bored of. So these little 3rd graders would play toy poker. And when I was talking to Nathan about toys, he goes, "Did you ever play toy poker?" And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Poker. Oh my!
So all the boys in the neighborhood would bring all their toys that they didn't play with much anymore, or they'd grown bored of the toys. They would put them in the pot and they would play poker for them.
And that's amazing.
Is that crazy? So a couple of the kids' parents were dealers, and Nathan said those kids could be sharky at cards. But he said he'd never forget. He won this stuffed Odie doll. I don't know if you remember Odie from the Garfield comic, but he loved this doll. He said it was in pristine condition. It wasn't slobbered on or anything, but he lost his beloved Garfield in toy poker.
What a trade!
What a trade, right? You win some, you lose some. So a while back, I was doing some internet searching to try to find the name of a toy that our family had and loved when we were little. And I was checking the Googs, and I checked with my brother, who's 1 year older than me, and I frequently have to go to him, and he helps me remember arcane bullshit from our childhood. So it was a toy made by Mattel called the Thing Maker. Cams, did you ever play with the Thing Maker?
I don't think so.
Okay. It came with what was essentially, it was a casting machine with a little hot plate, and it had these metal molds for the different things you could make. So I think we had the creepy crawler set, which included metal molds that had the shapes of insects and spiders and other creepy crawlies pressed into them.
Yes.
The Thing Maker came with 4 small bottles of different colored plastic goop that you could pour into the molds. And then the Thing Maker, that little hot plate, you would place the metal molds into the Thing Maker, and that hot plate would vulcanize the rubber and leave it in solid form. So you could essentially make your own little rubber toys, spiders and flowers and toy soldiers. And you had the toy, and then you could make other toys with the toy.
Wow.
Now, they also had a version that was called Incredible Edibles, which had similar. Is any of this ringing a bell?
Incredible Edibles does. I don't think I had it, but I knew what.
But you saw the commercial for it on Saturday morning. So it had similar molds, but instead of plastic goop, it came with something called gobbledygook, which was edible. And you could form it in these molds into the shape of worms or flowers or insects. And instead of the Thing Maker, the hot plate was called the Super Gooper.
Come on.
Oven.
Come on. That's
Camion,
awesome.
The flavors of gobbledygook included licorice, mint, butterscotch, cherry, root beer, cinnamon, tutti frutti, banana, and raspberry. But call it what you will, Mattel. It all tasted like shit across the board.
What was it?
It was terrible. It was terrible.
It was all just like wax.
And on the packaging, I wish it was wax. I wish it tasted as good as wax. On the packaging, it was like sugarless. Like that was one of the selling points. It was sugarless. Listen, it tasted terrible, but we put that shit into our mouths and we ate it. And if I'm honest with you, because this is the kind of kid I was, I put the rubber things that we made it with the thing maker. I wanted to chew on all of that stuff, and I'm so surprised that we didn't OD or get poisoned.
Like the little, like the black spiders and stuff that you made.
Oh my god! I just wanted to chew on it. But it's so funny because. This really, I'm honing in. I'm honing in on what the initial spark was. The potential danger did not end there. The thing that is so nutty to me about the potential danger of chewing and eating this bullshit, that was just the beginning of the danger. The thing that's so nutty to me about the thing maker was the hot plate. It was an open hot plate on our bedroom floor. Canyon, it heated up to about 400 degrees. What? And again, I'm just amazed we never burned the fucking house down. So I wanted to remember more about this toy because crazy. I could practically taste how shitty that candy was. So I continued to Google and I came across this article that really does contain the spark for the spark. It was an article on goodhousekeeping.com called 20 Most Dangerous Toys of All Time. It was written by Carolyn Picard. And of course, there have always been toys that are dangerous, like slingshots and pea shooters and trampolines.
BB guns. You'll shoot your eye out.
That's right, girl. Just in time for the holidays. These are known to be dangerous. Trampolines, like it's really hard to get homeowners insurance if you have a trampoline at your house because so many people get injured. But I'm telling you, that's not where the list ends. And some of these things that I'm about to share with you these are sparks that could be transformed into, I don't know, the plot points in a murder mystery.
In a thriller, in a total.
Oh my God.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God.
Like Chucky. Come on. It's a demented doll.
Yes.
Yeah.
Talk about what has been made of it. Like toys, like I said, this spark branches out in so many different directions. So I'm not even getting into like what's her Annabelle and Chucky and all like the nightmare, like horror aspects. This is a little bit of real life danger and horror for you. But here's a few just for fun for the holidays. So Aquadots. So Aquadots came out in 2007 and you would take these small, they look like little plastic beads and you arrange them in a design and you spritz them with water and the design would fuse together, which sounds totally fun. If you're like a creative kid like me, it sounds like it's totally fun. Here's the problem. This toy was released and the coating on the Aquadots contained the compound GHB, also known as the date rape drug, when ingested. So 3 children went into comas after swallowing these little things that look like little pieces of candy. No. Yes, and 4.2 million of these Aquadots kits were recalled, right?
What were they thinking?
What were they thinking indeed? Other fun question mark? I'll say it this way. Other fascinating, dangerous toys.
Fascinating.
Atomic laboratory kits.
Oh, God.
Produced in 1950 and 1951, the Gilbert U-238 Atomic Energy Lab, coming to you from the inventor of the Erector set, actually contained 4 types of uranium ore.
Stop.
Yes.
Oh, my God.
Yes. So actual like atomic matter. There was a little leaflet enclosed in the kit when you needed to purchase more uranium. You could write to the A.C. Gilbert Company in New Haven, Connecticut and specify what you needed, and they'd let you know how much it would cost and how much postage would be.
Who thought this was a good idea?
The 1950s thought this was a good idea.
Wow.
Let's talk about the danger of magnets. Lots of toys had these small, powerful magnets that were part of the toy or were the toy itself that kids would eat And then the magnets would do their magnet thing inside the kid, and that could block or perforate their intestinal tract and require surgery.
No.
So there was one particular toy called, and this toy is a real kick. It's called Barbie and Tanner. Barbie and Tanner was released in 2007, and it's sort of a dog walker Barbie. And from the pictures I looked at, you could see it came with a Barbie doll and her dog Tanner, and what looked like a bowl of magnetic kibble and a toy pooper scooper to clean up the kibble after Tanner passed it.
Oh,
so
God.
Tanner the dog would eat the kibble, and then it would come out of Tanner on the other side. And then there's a little trash can in the kit so Barbie could scoop and throw away the kibble.
Magnetic kibble.
The magnetic kibble poop. But the magnet inside the scooper accessory could come loose, and toddlers could ingest it or aspirate it. And I checked the recall on that one. Good news, Camian, no fatalities.
Oh, good.
Another, if you need another one, clackers or kerbangers. Does that ring a bell with you? This was 2 acrylic balls tethered together with a cord. Yeah, right? And you're meant to bang them together and they clack.
I think we have those, yeah.
I'm sure you did. They were marketed as being shatterproof, but apparently they would often crack into tiny shards that would fly into your face. You know, Camian, for kids.
Oh, God.
I am amazed that we did not die. Another one, this is very well known, very well documented, lawn darts, also known as jarts.
Yes. I think we might have had those too.
If you're not familiar with the lawn dart or the jart, it's like a large dart with a weighted tip that you threw and you tried to get them to land inside their target, which was a plastic hoop.
Yep.
So the Consumer Product Safety Commission banned these lawn darts, aka jarts, for the first time before reaching a deal with the manufacturers to avoid selling them as toys altogether. But even with the ban and the the deal with the manufacturers to stop selling them, 6,000 kids went to the hospital in the 70s and the 80s with related injuries, including 3 fatalities. They were banned for good in 1988, and they urged consumers to destroy any remaining games. But apparently there's this community of people that are like, no way, no day, suckers. And they continue to cherish and play with their lawn darts. But here's the crazy thing. In this article on Mashable by a person named Peter Allen Clark, I learned that lawn darts were actually inspired by, sparked, if you will, by an ancient Greek and Roman war weapon called a plumbata.
What?
The toy, that's what this article says. Peter Allen Clark writes, thought to have originated around 500 BCE, plumbata were, number 1, tactical weapons of war, and number 2, basically the same thing as lawn darts, weighted spikes thrown from a distance with the intention of landing somewhere soft. They were even thrown in the same way. Needless to say, the ancient Romans weren't aiming for a plastic circle.
No, they were not.
Now, I have to take Peter Allen Clark's word. I am not a journalist and I did not double check this source, but it's sort of like, if these indeed were based on an ancient tactical weapon of war, it's insane to me that they made a toy out of them. It's crazy. It's crazy.
It is nuts.
Speaking of weapons, let's talk about the Austen Magic Pistol. In an article on PCMag.com, writer Eric Griffiths describes this toy gun released in the 50s by Austen Manufacturing. With a look fresh out of Flash Gordon, it could shoot a ping pong ball a long, long way. The only issue might be the so-called magic crystals that caused the concussive force driving the ball were simply calcium carbide, which, when mixed with any water, even saliva, will expand after it turns to acetylene gas, then explode.
Oh.
If you buy an Austen magic pistol now, say on eBay, in many states, it's technically considered buying an actual firearm. Camion, I have seen a video of this thing firing. It is intense as hell. It does look like something out of Flash Gordon or Buck Rogers. You unscrew, basically, you know where what do they call it? Back in the back, where you pull the hammer back of a gun. Mm-hmm. You unscrew a little chamber back there. The magic crystals, quote unquote, are in there. You spit into it. You just like spit or put a few drops of water, close the back, and then you like give it a little shake and you pull it and it's like a gun going off.
Oh,
it's crazy.
God.
It's crazy. And kids were like spitting into this. Crazy.
So they
crazy.
They knew that element when they sold it. Then actually instructed kids to spit on it.
I think maybe they were like, just put a few drops of water. I didn't see the instructions, but the guy in the video who's demonstrating it just like unscrews the chamber in the back with the magic crystals and he just spits into it, screws the cap back on, gives a little shake, and bang, like you cannot believe there's kick off of it like a real firearm. It's crazy.
God.
So we arrive at the initial spark that I have carried around for a year and a half. This was the toy that sparked this whole spark. It was called the Little Lady Oven. It was made by the Metalware Corporation out of it was somewhere in Wisconsin in the 20s. So this was manufactured in the 20s. This is a play oven. It's beautiful. It's enamel. You can still buy them on eBay and collect them. People collect them. It is a kid-sized electric oven that reached temperatures of 600 degrees.
Why?
The Little Lady Oven gets hotter than my actual oven in my kitchen gets.
Why do they need it to go to 600 degrees?
600 degrees sitting in a kid's bedroom. What the fuck? Kids' brains are made to get distracted and wander away from a 600-degree oven.
God.
What happens when you put a dolly in a 600-degree oven? What happens when you you try to put your little brother's hand in a 600-degree oven? How many burns, Camion? How many fires? Unbelievable. But enough about toys that are trying to kill you. Like I said, this spark is so fertile. It shoots in so many different directions.
Yes.
Just like those clackers that I was just talking about. It just splinters into a million pieces. But in researching this story, I watched this really, really beautiful short documentary on the New Yorker website called Eddie's World. Directed by Lynn Goldfarb, this documentary focuses on a man named Eddie Goldfarb, who is documentarian Lynn's father. This man, Eddie Goldfarb, is now 99, and Eddie is an independent toy inventor who created such awesomeness as the yakety yak chattering teeth.
Oh.
Does that, can you get a visual 100%. On that? Sort of like, yeah. So those teeth, plastic teeth, bright white plastic teeth set into red gums, you wind them up and they go. Yep. So invented in 1947, his spark of inspiration for the wind up chattering teeth was a magazine ad that Eddie saw for something called a tooth garage, which was a little container where you could store your false teeth at night, like on your bedstand. In an article on collectorsweekly.com, Eddie said that in his head, he saw a pair of dentures chomping and sputtering down the road like a car and then parking on their own into their tooth garage. So he was at his dentist. He asked the dentist for a pair of old teeth. He made a mold and cast some teeth in plastic, and it was a big hit right from the start. And this novelty toy still has legs. It shows up in pop culture all the time. It shows up all the time. So in this doc, Eddie, who has invented more than 800 toys, he says that he wishes he could say more about the creative process, but it's so much of what he's done for so long that he doesn't even think about it. And when it comes to toys and games, anything and everything can provide him the spark of an idea. he said that when he first gets an idea about something, he's very lucky because he can visualize it and he can visualize how to make it step by step. So he gets the spark of the idea and then he can see in his mind's eye how he can make it step by step, which I have to say is a real superpower I do not possess. But kudos to you, Eddie, and anybody else who has that. He said that he believes that when you do creative work, you stimulate your brain and that keeps your body healthy. This is coming from a 99-year-old man. So I'm listening to his spark.
Yeah.
Little side spark from Eddie. In his late 90s, Eddie began writing 100-word stories. He's written his first 100-word stories, and now he's into working on his second 100-word stories. And he still attends a writing group in his retirement village. Now, this is a person who has creative ideas all the time, but I observed that he makes stuff on his own. He makes stuff with engineers and mold makers and all kinds of support people. But he also attended this writing group and seemed to relish in the creation with the support of others, which is something that I think we always really believe in. But also just 100-word stories, I think is such a great spark. And I actually called my dad with that spark. And I was like, this is something that would be a very satisfying creative act during the course of a single day to write a 100-word story.
I agree. I just wrote it down myself. I'm like, oh, that sounds awesome.
They show him with his notebook open, not notebook, but just like you can hear POTUS snoring in the background.
Yes.
If I can love POTUS as a guest star on the Spark File. Here we go. One more. That's a good boy. So they showed him with a 3-ring binder open and he's turning the pages, and a 100-word story is just like a slim little paragraph. And I feel like it could be anything from just sort of like a scrap of an idea to like a beginning, middle, end kind of a story or a reflection on a day. And I was like, this is a good spark. So
yeah,
there's a spark.
Yeah,
free sparks. Not free sparks over here.
Make it.
Thank you for the spark, Eddie. So as I was preparing for the spark, Nathan and I were talking about toys, and we were laughing about the first toy they talk about in Laura Ingalls Wilder's first book, Little House in the Big Woods. Cams, do you remember the first appearance of the first toy in that book?
Give me a hint. What was it?
I think I might have talked about it on the pod. It's an inflated pig's bladder from when Pa does butchering time. He saves the pig's bladder and blows it up into sort of a white balloon tied with a string.
Gosh.
And Laura and Mary, it's like maybe like the only balloon they've ever had. And they just bat it back and forth in the air with their hands. And it sounds like they have a freaking blast with it. And so I found this article on the website, quintessentialantiquedolls.com. And in the article, a doll collector and a writer named Jennifer Stewart wrote a beautiful essay about all the toys in all of the Little House books. And she also writes about all the toys and dolls that she herself, that Jennifer collects. So this is from her essay, and this is quoted from Little House in the Big Woods. When cold weather comes, the girls play in the attic where large yellow pumpkins make perfect tables and chairs. Mary has a rag doll named Nettie, but Laura's doll, Susan, is just a corn cob wrapped in a handkerchief. I remember reading that when I read Little House in the Big Woods, and I was so taken with the thought that she gets a doll later, and I'll talk about that, but that Laura's doll that she named Susan was just a little dried up corn cob wrapped in a handkerchief. But she loved it and she treasured it and she carried it around like as her little baby doll. And I just...
So let me just get this straight. Laura's doll, she named Susan, and it was a little straw, a little...
Just a little corn cob.
Clearly I need to make my own little Susan out of a corn cob and carry you around in my pocket, I think.
For when you can't be with me in person. And people are like, Laura's gone around the bend. I love the image of that. I just thought that was so sweet that her treasured doll was just something that she had made and kind of improvised.
Yep.
And Jennifer Stewart goes on to talk about all the toys that they play with in those books.
Neat.
Some were improvised, some were homemade, some were store-bought. So on the homemade front, this is the passage from Little House in the Big Woods when Laura finally gets like a real doll. Laura was happiest of all. Laura had a rag doll. She was a beautiful doll. She had a face of white cloth with black button eyes. A black pencil had made her eyebrows, and her cheeks and her mouth were red with the ink made from pokeberries. Her hair was black yarn that had been knit and raveled so that it was curly. She had little red flannel stockings and little black cloth gaiters for shoes, and her dress was pretty pink and blue calico. She was so beautiful that Laura could not say a word. She just held her tight and forgot everything else. She loved her red mittens and she loved her candy, but she loved her doll best of all. She named her Charlotte. And if I remember correctly, she gets that doll at Christmas. That is her Christmas present.
Oh, sweet.
Just love that. Wonder what happened to Susan the corn cob.
We upgraded over here.
I don't think we heard about Susan much after that. And then we have Jennifer shares with us one of the God, POTUS is really going to town. Jennifer shares some of the improvised toys. When Paul began building the wonderful house of pine boards the next spring, Laura and Mary played with the curly wood shavings. They made necklaces and earrings, and Laura hung them in her hair to make the golden curls she longed to have. Wood shavings, folks. Wood shavings. I love an improvised toy.
Yes.
I love an improvised toy. Did you do any improvised toys when you were
Oh, yeah.
kids?
I mean, for the people, like, so my dad would bring home little scraps of wood from the wood shop. I mean, definitely just like Pa. And we would be like, ooh, this could be the couch, and this could be a little bookshelf, and this could be.
Yes.
So we made all of our stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. All of it.
In your house made out of record album covers.
That is correct.
Oh my God.
Yep. We would do all that.
Oh my God. I love it. You know, Hunter Bell always talks about how he would take the armrest cover off of the sofa and he would put it on his hair like a wig. He would just put it on his head and he would be like Guinevere in Camelot. And there's something about improvised toys that I love, and I think that it is the spark for those improv games where, like, on What's My Line, they have an object, whether it's like it's a hula hoop or it's a boa or it's a book or whatever, and you take it and you make something else out of it. That's a version of adult play that I think is
the best. I mean, in terms of like engaging your brain and your creative forces. Yeah, I'm so nostalgic. This is so joyful, this walk down memory lane and just thinking about kids and how much like I want for them to, you know, have just enough to spark their imagination and then have to get resourceful.
And then run with it. Yeah. I think a lot of toys and play now really just like gives it to them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it sort of does it all. Yeah. It does it all. We're going to get to more of that in just a second. But I wanted to share, this is a passage from On the Banks of Plum Creek, and this is about store-bought toys, right? Okay. And if we're talking store-bought toys, we're talking Nellie Olson. So this is at a party at the Olson house. Nellie walked among them saying, "You can look at my doll." The doll had a china head with smooth red cheeks and red mouth. Her eyes were black and her china hair was black and waved. Her wee hands were china and her feet were tiny china feet in black china shoes. "Oh," said Laura. "Oh, what a beautiful doll. Oh, Nellie, what is her name?" "She's nothing but an old doll," Nellie said. "I don't care about this doll. You wait till you see my wax doll." She threw the china doll in a drawer and she took out a long box. She put the box on the bed and she took off its lid. All the girls leaned around her to look. There lay a doll that seemed to be alive. Real golden hair lay in soft curls on her pillow. Her lips were parted, showing 2 tiny white teeth. Her eyes were closed. The doll was sleeping there in the box. Nellie lifted her up and her eyes opened wide. They were big blue eyes. She seemed to laugh. Her arms stretched out and she said, "Mama." She was dressed in blue silk. Her petticoats were real petticoats trimmed with ruffles and lace, and her panties were real little panties that would come off. On her feet were real little blue leather slippers. I'm telling you.
Come on.
I feel like the very idea, first of all, Nellie,
those ringlets. Ugh.
Having things doesn't make you appreciate things,
That's
Nellie
right.
Olson.
That's right.
But it really does, just like reading that, I was like, the very idea of toys can be time machines for creatives, I think.
Yes.
In her essay, Jennifer Stewart says, Laura's Little House books reveal 4 generations of children, toys, and playtime in the 19th century. Her stories evidence the progression of toys through the decades of that century and the advancement of playthings from poor and migrant families through those of more well-to-do families, and the development of playtime interests as children in that century grew older. Then, as now, play had a purpose. Play was a means to learn how to be an adult in the world into which one was born and raised. Sometimes a means to break out of the role intended for one by adults. And as always, play was for fun. And I just thought that was, I don't know, I thought Jennifer's observations of that were really interesting, how it does, just through those books, just through that sort of those recollections, you learn what it was like to be a kid who was growing and developing and changing and either playing with like girls, I'm using air quotes, girl toys, to be like, this is preparing me as I cradle my corn cob doll, Susan. It's preparing me to be a mom.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
right.
Or sometimes you could be a kid who's like, I'm a girl and I'm not interested in that baby doll.
That's correct.
And sort of pushing against it.
Yep.
I thought here's a little meandering that my fingers did as well. I found an article from 2004 from theguardian.com by Sophie Ari. And Sophie told the story of archaeologists finding the remains of a 4,000-year-old stone doll on the Mediterranean island of Pantelleria, which is between Sicily and Tunisia.
I want to see that doll.
So, Cams, this is insane. They found a little doll head. It was about 3 centimeters, crudely carved with eyes, nose, and mouth, wavy hair. And it was found with a miniature set of terracotta cooking pots.
What? Oh my gosh.
And all of this, these little toys were found on the site of this Bronze Age village at Murcia in these 2 huts. And these little toys were found in the children's living quarters.
Oh my gosh.
And they believe that the saucepans and that little doll head were toys belonging to the girls who lived in this village around 4,000 years ago.
Oh my
which is to say, we have been playing with toys for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And play and toys, it feels very primal to me. And it feels like it's always been super important for kids. So on this website for the National Association of Education of Young Children, I read this article by Stefan Auerbach, aka Dr. Toy. Stefan Auerbach is an author and an expert who offers guidance on toys for all ages from around the world. And Dr. Toy, Dr. Auerbach says, play is essential to babies, toddlers, preschool, and school-age children. Children need plenty of opportunities to play with a variety of good toys and materials and use their imagination. We need to respect and understand more about the world of play and its great value for all babies and children and for adults as well. which is a good reminder that I think we all know, and we've all like read articles or read studies about how important play is for children in terms of, oh my God, developing their brains and their health and their cognitive abilities and their ability to figure things out and figure out how to collaborate and all of that. But it's really, really, really important for adults too. And I would venture to say now more than ever, like the state of the world being what it is now more than ever. So I listened to a story from NPR by Sammy Yenigan. And Sammy Yenigan interviewed Dr. Stuart Brown, who is the head of a nonprofit called National Institute for Play. And Dr. Brown defines play as something done for its own sake. It's voluntary, it's pleasurable, it offers a sense of engagement, it takes you out of time, and the act itself is more important than the outcome. And Cammy, when I read that, it really rang my bell, because I think I said to you recently, Cams, and again, on air, off air, I don't fucking know. But I think that I said I wanted to carve out more time for creativity that wasn't tied to work or deadlines. Like you and I are creating all the time in relation to the Spark file. And I love that work. But I also have noticed this thing rising up in me where I think what I'm craving is more play. And to use Dr. Brown's definition, I want something done for its own sake, something voluntary, something pleasurable, something that offers a sense of engagement, something that takes me out of time. And the act itself is more important than the outcome. And I was like, yes, I'm really feeling that. Dr. Brown.
I gotta say, it reminds me of that book I told you I was reading, The How to Do Nothing, and really taking ourselves out of this like commercialism. Everything has to be in order to make money, or what is it? And trying to think, like, can I just play and enjoy myself? Can I just listen to this music? Can I just be, take in art or output art? And have it just be that. It's about the process being more important than the outcome.
You know what I need to wrap my mind around with that is because we talk about in the spark cycle of creativity, there is generating sparks of creativity. There's fanning the flames, which is the actual making. And then there's the sharing the light. And sometimes with this play stuff, I'm like, I like making things sometimes where there's no obligation to post it on social media. There's no obligation to sell it. There's no obligation to, but I will say this, if I'm honest with myself, there is that part of me that's still like, Mom, look at me, that wants to play, that wants to do a handstand in the pool and then run upstairs to paint a painting, to make a thing, and either just show it to Nathan or share it with you or show it to my literal mom and be like, look, I made this today. So it's possible that maybe I answer my own question, which is sometimes the sharing of the light is just turning to POTUS and being like, wake up, sleepy dog. I made something. Isn't it great? Yes. What I did today.
Yes. With no further expectation. Just like, let me share the joy that I experienced today in making this or in playing, to come inside from running around in the neighborhood and be like,
to drink some, do we have any Sunny D, Mom? So, Cams, let me ask you, what does play mean to you now? Like, what are your toys now? What does play mean to you now?
Oh my gosh, Suze. Wow, I don't feel like I do enough of it. I'll say that. But I feel like I've been going on these long walks and like stopping to photograph like things I've never seen. And it's a lot of nature at the moment, which I'm loving. But I wouldn't mind it. Like when Wes comes along with me, it feels more playful. When I'm by myself, it feels a little more contemplative.
Make up songs together.
Yeah, things like that. Wes, I think Wes is a lot of my playtime. Because we do exactly that, like just little songs and little things.
Wes is your toy now.
Wes is
You've
one
got
great big toy.
a life-size Wes. Yes.
Yeah.
He is.
But I'm also like, as you know, setting up a new little creative space. So for a good portion of the quarantine, I was in the dining room. And so I am setting up more play space in here intentionally. So I'm hoping that I too will have more play when I create a little space for it. Literally.
Let's make a commitment to ourselves. See if you're willing to enter into this pact that when we set up, we're both in the midst of setting up our spaces, that we both somewhere in our space, here's a little Easter egg for the listeners, that we always have a toy. We always have a toy in view.
Yes, I can commit to that.
Remind us. Yes. To remind us of the importance of toys and play. And all of this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
So,
okay.
Yeah, there's a spark for you. I also wrote on a Post-it note that's stuck on my computer now. I wrote play, and I'll get to that in just a second. So, in conclusion, sort of, I think that toys and play are so sparky, and it's important in the present day, but it's also historic, it's prehistoric, and in the words of Dr. Stuart Brown, it even takes you outside of time, like it is unbound by time. So in order to find a stopping point in a spark that could be endless, I would like to return to Jennifer Stewart's essay on toys in the little house world. Okay. She says, I count myself as quite fortunate to be able to surround myself with antique household items, textiles, toys, and dolls from the 19th and early 20th centuries. In this way, I am able to be part of the history of these dolls and antiques as they predate me and will live beyond me. While they bring the past with them, they are now and can never be a long time ago. Jennifer concludes her essay with a passage from Little House in the Big Woods. Pa's strong, sweet voice was softly singing. When the fiddle had stopped singing, Laura called out softly, What are days of auld lang syne, Pa? They are the days of a long time ago, Laura, Pa said. Go to sleep now. But Laura lay awake a little while, listening to Pa's fiddle playing and to the lonely sound of the wind in the big woods. She looked at Pa sitting on the bench by the hearth, the firelight gleaming on his brown hair and beard and glistening on the honey-brown fiddle. She looked at Ma gently rocking and knitting. She thought to herself, this is now. She was glad that the cozy house and Pa and Ma and the firelight and the music were now. They could not be forgotten, she thought, because now is now. It can never be a long time ago. So I want to thank Jennifer Stewart and Laura Ingalls Wilder and Rose Wilder, who probably contribute to that beautiful writing. There's something about the timelessness of toys that I think is so potently creative and sparkish. And so the question is, what do we make of it? I mean, this spark is so vast that so many things have been made and so many things will be made. If you haven't watched it, Jingle Jangle on Netflix, David Talbert, who wrote and directed it, is a human spark. He makes books and movies and musicals and films. He's so unstoppable. He'd be an amazing guest on the podcast. But, you did a social post about it. Like, Jingle Jangle is it's all about toys and the magic of toys and creativity. And there's the Toy Story movies. Yeah. There are podcasts which are remarkable. There's podcasts like Toy Tomb, which is described as two old guys talking about the toys of their youth. I spent an afternoon listening to them, going through the major Christmas catalogs, like the Sears catalog, the JCPenney catalog from the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s. And I just listened to them while they looked at these catalogs and talked about the toys that they had wanted and sometimes got to play with as kids, toys that they may still be collecting. Another spark is you could make a toy. You could make a toy for yourself or for someone else. You could invent a toy like Eddie Goldfarb. This is what I'm going to take away. in the new year, I want to carve out more time for play that is not tied to assignment or work. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that, but I'm craving this. And as I thought about that, I thought, I want to bring more of a sense of play into our work. So whether it's like building curriculum or updating our website or even deciding how we structure episodes and roll them out, I was like, what if we approach it and structure it and infuse that with as much play as possible in the way we talk about things and the way that we make things? I was just like, how much of it can just be, I know that sometimes you have to like get serious and like do work. And I'm not trying to like undercut our work, but I was just like, what if it's like, we know that we're not curing cancer or saving France when we do this stuff. What if it was like the website was our toy and we were playing with it?
And it can feel like play. Yeah, exactly. Like what would this feel like if it were easy? It would feel like play.
That's right. What would this feel like if it were easy? It would feel like play. So that is another thing that I'm taking out of this.
I love that. You're so right. There's so many tentacles from all these. It's so loaded with sparks.
I mean, this could be its own podcast series, like the sparks around toys and play. It's crazy.
So much.
And then like we were talking about, like you get into toy horror, not to mention like toy collectibles, like toy nostalgia, toy. It's crazy. It's a
I keep thinking of like, you know, a plot point even that was like a fire in someone's house that was created by what was it? Little Miss oven.
Oh my God.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes. The little lady oven
that you see early in Act 1. And then, you know, the fire that burns it all down.
A lingering close-up shot. We take the scene out on a lingering close-up shot of the little lady oven. Yeah.
And then we know. Yeah. It's so amazing. And also when you like think about what you can do with stories regarding your own precious toy and what it meant to you, your siblings' favorite toys and what you did to them. And, you know, like there's just so much. It's so loaded.
Yeah. It's so specific and it's so loaded. And it really does. There are some people that they've sort of blocked out large swaths of their childhood in order usually to protect themselves. But for a lot of us, those are very rich seedlings, very rich sparklings that can be
well, I feel like I am someone who blocked out a lot of my childhood for a variety of reasons, and this is a way in, like asking yourselves these questions that you began your spark with, really digging in. It started to like peel back some of the film that you know, keeps me from seeing my childhood. And it like gets clearer and clearer as I hone in on the toys. It's really awesome.
I'm remembering right now, we used to make a cabin out of Lincoln logs. Did you?
Oh, yeah.
We would make a cabin out of Lincoln logs. We would take a like a duckling or a gosling out of the backyard, and we would put a gosling or a duckling into the cabin, put the roof on quickly, and then the gosling would burst through it like the Kool-Aid man coming through the wall. And if we had a little movie camera, I think we would have filmed it and made it as if the duckling was a little like a dun 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 dun, kind of like a Godzilla and Mothra type situation. Play baby, toys baby.
Toys. Oh my God. Let me just say one more. Like you said, what did you call them? Improvised toys?
Improvised
one
toys,
day, so my mom had a pair of leather gloves that had like rabbit fur or probably fake rabbit fur on the inside.
Fancy.
Yeah.
Fancy.
I know.
Yeah.
And I took them to school one day. And when I took them off, I discovered that if you take them off sort of and leave them inside out, they look like a little tiny ball of fur. So I took the glove off where no one could see me and then kept this little ball of fur cradled in my hand and like treated it like it was this tiny little baby rabbit. And
Of mice and
I
men.
made sure
Oh my
that,
goodness.
the people behind me could see me like place it in my desk. And then I would like check on it periodically. And then soon there just started to be like a buzz, like there's a baby rabbit in Laura's desk. There's a rabbit in her desk. And then eventually, of course, at recess, I had to be like, just kidding, you guys. It's a glove. It's just a glove.
Acting.
It's acting. But that for a while, we all loved the little baby rabbit that was in my desk.
Oh,
Just a glove.
I still have a little baby mouse finger puppet that I adored that I got at it wasn't a county fair. It was a local fair, like at the Harvest Festival or something. And, that thing still, I saw the toy demonstrator demonstrating it, and it just like, in the same way that you're describing petting your little imaginary live rabbit, I loved that little mouse. I'm getting all of these toys out. Some of them I still have, and they will be on display coming to a Zoom near you.
Yes. I can't wait.
Oh my God,
So
Cammie,
good.
and I think that's it. Oh my goodness. This episode of The Spark File was made on Muncie, Lenape, and Seminole land. And as always, we hope that this put another bunch of sparks in your file. Listen, if there's a spark that you'd like us to explore, or if you've taken a spark and fanned it into a creative flame and you'd like to share it, email us at thesparkfile@gmail.com or submit it through our website, thesparkfile.com.
We will even happily take your feedback, but you know the price of admission. First, you got to share a creative risk that you have taken recently.
Cams, I just had a thought. When you were saying that thing about how there are large parts of your childhood that you feel like you've obscured from yourself, and toys are a way in, I think that there's something to that. I think there's a healthy, constructive, gentle entry point to revisit some of those times. And then it makes it possible, potentially, for people to access and make and create from the other parts of those times that were maybe more challenging.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I just wanted to say that before I forgot.
Yeah.
Where was I? Oh, yes. Follow us on social at The Spark File, and be sure to subscribe, rate, and 5-star review this podcast. Listen, not only does it really help other listeners find us, we have discussed, and I think we're going to start doing a thing where if you want to write a few words about your feelings about the Spark File podcast, I think we're going to start opening up episodes by sharing some of the things that you have written. We're going to read your reviews back to you.
Mm-hmm.
So share some fresh reviews, people. Also, if you like this podcast, we hope during this holiday season, you'll share it with people that you love. And if you didn't like it, I have nothing more to say to you. We're 2 hours in and you're still listening.
If something tickles your fancy and gets your creative juices flowing, we're writing you a forever permission slip to make that thing that has been knocking at your door. It's your turn to take a spark and fan it into a flame.
You know you got to take it
and make it. Bye.
Bye. Happy holidays. Shing-ling-a-ling, ling-ling-a-ling.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the Chief Creative Officer and Chief Marketing Officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume.